Chris.
Deathloop. Hi, Heath.
Hi, I'm glad to see you're excited.
I am super excited.
You texted me that in all caps. And you know what the first thing I thought of?
No, I don't.
Was Elon Musk's Los Angeles public transit solution, the Hyperloop.
Oh.
Because I had no idea what Deathloop was.
Can you provide some details for people who don't know what the Hyperloop is?
Oh, I mean, the traffic in Los Angeles is the worst in the country. It's worse than New York. And so Elon, because he has a company that digs tunnels. They're just big holes. He was toying with the idea of digging like a super speed monorail system under California called the Hyperloop.
I see.
And I don't think it went anywhere, but people are getting excited. But Deathloop. You said that like, inform all the fans what the Hyperloop is because they already know what Deathloop is.
I mean, that was the assumption I was going off of. Our audience is full of cultured video game players. Of course they know.
Yeah, they
what
know
Deathloop is.
That Deathloop it's the Arcane Studios spiritual successor to Dishonored.
That is how it's appearing, yes. It is very heavily Dishonored inspired, which previously we weren't too sure about. But we're getting very far ahead of ourselves, Heath.
Right, on this show. Called Mobius Tubes.
Mobius Tubes, and this is episode 42, being recorded on...
Who's the athlete that's 42?
Oh, that's Tom Brady?
Jackie Robinson?
Oh, sorry, I missed this reference you were going for.
No, I mean, I'm trying to appeal to our sports friends.
How old is Tom Brady?
Yeah, I was right, Jackie Robinson.
Who wore 42?
Yeah.
I thought you were asking age.
His age? Maybe.
42.
Oh my God.
I know so much about football.
Our brains are so different. They
are.
We're coming to you on July 14th, 2020.
June 14th, 2020.
Oh, shit.
Did you have any other shenanigans you wanted to get out of the way in this opening?
In the intro?
In the intro,
well,
yeah.
I mean, people can already see from the title that we are going to be revisiting our heated debate from last episode. And I was just thinking, man, Chris, when are we going to unveil our merch?
Yeah.
For the fans?
Like, I don't even know what we would put on a t-shirt.
Well, surely one of my many catchphrases, but when I think of merch, I immediately think of the Chris branded sleepwear eye mask. Where it's labeled the Experience Machine. That's how we're going to sell it. And you just put it on and you imagine that you're plugged in and you can have all of life's experiences underneath that mask. And we're going to sell it for like $45 a pop.
Ooh, hefty margins on that item.
I mean, it's a limited edition trademarked Chris branding.
I see, yeah. That is very valuable. I can't wait for us to revisit this discussion.
But we have way too many games to go through before we get to that debate.
There is so much to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess we can really quickly go through, I assume it's quick, maybe it won't be, what we've been playing the past week. Yeah. Would you like me to go first, Heath?
Sure.
Okay. I played two things, and one of them I've brought to talk about before, one I have not. So I just wrapped up Thronebreaker a couple weeks ago, and I've also been playing this other heavy reading literary game, Disco Elysium.
Right.
So I've been doing a lot of reading lately, but I wanted something a little more energetic, let's say, to play. So actually what I've been playing the past couple of weeks is I revisited Devil May Cry 5.
Okay.
And if you've been listening to this show right from the start, you know I don't often revisit games. Replaying is not something I do too regularly. So that should tell you how much I like Devil May Cry 5.
Yeah, the fact that it has any longevity in your mind's eye is a feather in its cap.
Right. And adding to my desire to replay it is it's a pretty short game, like 12 to 14 hours, give or take, to run through it. Not a heavy investment. So I have actually since beaten it twice now.
Mm-hmm. You didn't go back primarily for Bloody Palace.
Right. I played through the campaign again on a higher difficulty setting. And there were two big takeaways for me. One, Devil May Cry 5 is not at all like riding a bicycle. You never forget how to ride a bicycle. I forgot how to play Devil May Cry 5 because there's 3 protagonists in this game. Dante, Nero, and V.
The fun dancing pizza wahoo man
is Dante.
The emo poetry reading skinny boy.
That's V.
And the bratty zinger,
little immature,
young.
Yeah, that would be Nero.
Yeah.
So there's these 3 different characters you're juggling, each with their own moveset. Each who could pretty much on any other stylish character action game, they could have carried the game by themselves. They're complex enough to have an entire game dedicated to themselves.
Their own standalone.
Right. And you've got 3 of them, and you're switching between them. And the moveset in this game is verbose. It is huge. I've played through it twice, and I have not even come close to unlocking all of the available moves. I had to sit down and refresh myself with the characters in just like the training mode for upwards of 10 minutes at a time before I felt comfortable playing the game on the harder difficulty setting. So yeah, a bit of a jarring reintroduction.
It had like a learning curve even for experienced players.
Definitely. But that said, once I did get my Devil May Cry 5 sea legs back, I really do recommend this game. Was totally made with the intention of going through it multiple times.
Oh.
Because like I said...
Oh, yeah. Don't the things carry over?
Everything carries over.
Yeah.
The extra health you've unlocked, all the moves you've unlocked. I don't think it's possible to unlock everything with even 1 or 2 playthroughs. It just takes many playthroughs to like get everything there is to get. And playing on harder difficulty has been excellent because... And I wasn't super aware of this the first time I played it, but... A lot of times on the easier settings...
Who are the enemies in Devil May Cry? Are they devils?
They are devils and demons.
Okay.
You've got some like giant insect-looking things. You've got Grim Reapers.
I know there's one boss that's just like a big tripod thing in the street.
Yes, you are right.
That's like a not as fun boss, though.
You're right. Yeah. He's kind of mundane. But there's a lot of cool bosses, though. There's Cerberus. He's in there.
Yes.
But as I was saying, playing on the lower difficulties, I didn't realize a lot of times when I was trying to do my cool flashy combo, enemies would die mid-combo and leaving me kind of like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just start this combo again on a different enemy. But playing on a higher difficulty, enemies have much greater health pools. So taking the time to try to execute that long flashy combo is adequately rewarded now.
It's in the service of style.
Yeah, in the service of style. In fact, I think at some times you may even want to do weaker moves against foes just to prolong the combo and get a higher rating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the epitome of toying with your food.
It is the epitome of toying with your food. And if you play on the really higher difficulty settings, like the Son of Sparta mode, then they introduce late game enemies right at the beginning. So suddenly all of the combat scenarios you've played through, they've all been remixed and mashed up, and it's like a whole different game, kind of.
Is it the case where if your combo gets high enough and you are flourishing to the extent at which the game wants you to, the soundtrack in the background gets boosted with vocals?
Oh.
Do you get that, or is that just Bloody Palace? I haven't played this game, by the way.
I know. Character action games, not your favorite
But
genre.
I thought that if you're playing cool enough, vocals will kick in.
I see.
Or is that exclusive to boss fights?
I'd have to do a deep dive to adequately answer that question. Vocals are definitely present even if you're not doing amazing, but maybe they become even more pronounced.
Maybe.
So yeah, that's about all I had to say about Devil May Cry.
Okay, because hold on. So
yeah.
I was going to say, is the reason you went back to Devil May Cry because of that one video in which the guy's like, I don't understand it. You know what I'm talking about?
Show me.
DMC 5. It's just this guy who clearly bought the game because he thought it looked cool and had not played any of the other games or was not familiar with how dancey it is. Or like, you know what I'm trying to say. And it's this tirade of him just when Trish hands Dante the hat.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't understand. And then like the climax of the video is when Dante goes into the Michael Jackson routine and he's just like, what the fuck?
I mean, that's like one of my favorite parts of the game.
Oh, yeah. It's so much humor. And I'll send you the clip, but I can't find it right away.
I see. So it's kind of like, on the surface level, the game looks awfully serious, but there's this whole comedic undertone throughout the whole thing.
Box art, the first hour of Nero.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see how that could defy your expectations.
Can you play as Virgil?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Virgil is Dante's brother.
Yes, thank you.
Just in case you didn't know. That's really all I've got. It's still a really fun game.
All right, cool.
And I played one other game that's also very
Energetic.
high-octane, energetic.
Uh-huh.
I played one made by a studio called Housemarque, which we will briefly mention later on in the episode. I played Nex Machina. Heath, based on this expression you're giving me, you probably don't look like a Nex Machina fan.
What color is it?
It's a lot of red.
Okay.
So Housemarque, they make
Mirror's Edge?
twin-stick shooters.
Ah.
Very arcadey, high-score chasing type games.
Yeah.
You might know them as the makers of Resogun or Super Stardust. Those are probably their two most well-known games.
You could be making these up.
These are like games they harken back to games you would play at the arcade.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to get the high score, twin stick shooters. So you've got a character, you're shooting hordes of enemies.
The twin stick shooter is I was gonna say like Itagaki. What's the word? What's the shmup? It's a shmup, right?
Yeah.
Twin stick shooters?
Yeah, they're super similar.
That's the same thing? Wait, okay, twin stick shooter. Is this first person or top down?
This is more of like an isometric view. So almost top down.
Okay.
It's top down at an angle.
Ikaruga.
Okay, yeah. I
I
think
said Itagaki. Okay, so this is isometric.
Yeah.
Oh.
you're on an enclosed environment. There's hordes of enemies coming at you. You're shooting them. There's not a whole lot more to it than that, except there's also a couple like humans in the environment you need to like pick up and rescue before the robots kill them.
Oh, cool.
So there's a little bit of risk versus reward. Do you want to put yourself in a dangerous situation to save the human right away or just hang back? And there's like power-ups and you can get a shield, and this is like very much an arcade game. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know the core tenets of a Chris game.
Yes.
They are...
Allow me. The Chris.
Oh, sure.
The core tenets of Chris games include time management, upgradable specialization, multiple solutions.
Yeah, actually, you're doing great.
Yeah.
I would have said multiple solutions to any given problem. I would have said a strong core cast of characters, and then progression systems, which you nailed on
Progressions. That's the word I
with
was
upgrades,
looking for,
you said, which are basically the same thing.
Thank you.
So taking that into consideration, this game is not at all in my wheelhouse whatsoever. I played it, like, it's pretty short. You can hit the credits in like an hour. I don't recommend Nex Machina. I would say if you are the arcade perfectionist type of player, check out Resogun first. That, I think, is a lot cooler. You're kind of on like a cylindrical plane instead of this very traditional grid. Or Super Stardust, which is on like a spherical plane, and there's meteors to destroy. I prefer those other Housemarque games a lot more than Nex Machina. I think they have a fun little twist on the twin-stick shooter formula. The only way I would possibly recommend you check out Nex Machina is if you've already exhausted Resogun and Super Stardust and you want more Housemarque games, then sure, knock yourself out. Nex Machina, I mean, it's well made, it's polished, it works well, there's a cool soundtrack, but the gameplay, it was too traditional for my taste. You've got to be like a weird twin-stick shooter to have me interested. And that's all I've got.
Cool.
Oh, this one has voxels like Resogun. You know what a voxel is, right, Heath?
It's like a pixel that's a little blobbier.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to describe it. Enemies will like shatter into a million tiny little pixels. It's a cool visual gimmick, which I think Resogun was maybe the first game that employed it.
It's like pixels with depth.
Yeah.
Like there's parallax and stuff.
Well said.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Sweet.
I know game development.
And that's everything I've played in the past week. Not super meandering this time. Got right to the meat.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do you one better. Bailey and I played What Remains of Edith Finch to its entirety. Yeah, that's why I was texting you about the walking simulator walk back.
Oh, I did not know what to make of that.
So, Chris, I was going to design this chart in which I would plot how weird a walking simulator is across how cool it is. And what are some walking simulators we got? Firewatch, it's moderately cool. And I would say like ever so slightly weird.
Gotcha.
So that would go there. Stanley Parable is weird.
That is weird.
But it's very cool.
It is maxing out both scales.
It would go up there, yeah. Yeah, start shouting out more walking simulators.
Gone Home.
Ooh, okay, we'll get to that.
Dear Esther.
Okay, we'll revisit this once I'm more familiar with
the genre. Got it.
But okay, Chris, you sold me on Edith Finch because I thought it was going to be a suspense, mystery, investigative, and it is... Like, you don't know what fate befell your family members. Mm-hmm. And there's a through line that they're all kind of cursed. But this game is really weird.
Okay.
And it kind of dragged on. We played it all in one go.
What would you call the elevator pitch to What Remains of Edith Finch? Just to quickly summarize what you're doing.
Oh, it's like...
Hard game to define.
Girl walk through house.
All right, yeah, that's literally what happens.
Here's what I would do. It's your elevator pitch. I would just hit the emergency stop and just give fetal position and be like, what remains? What remains? Because I don't know. There's a girl. She was summoned back to her childhood home.
Right.
With the purpose of finding out the answers behind her family's history. But Chris, the first thing you do in that game...
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the rising and falling action. You have a key, and it doesn't unlock the front door, and you're like, ooh, good. It doesn't unlock the basement. Good. Progression blockers.
Mm-hmm.
It instead unlocks a lock that is in a false book. You know the kind where you flip open the front cover and the pages are all cut out and there's actually a lock in place of where words should be?
That's my favorite kind of book.
I was going to say the same thing because I don't like reading. So you unlock that key and it opens like a crawl space kind of thing where you see remnants of your long lost brother who went missing because you saw the missing pamphlets on the front porch and you're like, ooh, he's here.
Tantalizing.
Yeah. So it's awesome. And then you go into Molly's room, which is the first family member, and it says that she died back in the 40s when she was 10.
Right.
And you start to play as Molly in a flashback sort of way.
You enter this vignette.
Yeah, there you go. And you immediately see, like, oh, she died of food poisoning because she was sent up to her room without dinner and she was hungry, so she ate, like, everything from, like, toothpaste to mistletoe berries. And surely that's how she died. And then you get turned into a cat.
Yeah. It's not presented very straight.
And then you get turned into a shark.
Mm-hmm.
And an owl.
Right.
And it's like, oh, is this going to be the whole game? Of like these trippy supernatural vignettes?
Yes.
And Bailey and I are kind of just going along for the ride. And she's driving the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, the sea monster was hard for her to control. So we're in spoilers now, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, we're just playing to fill out this little book of how everybody died. We're playing to get to the end.
It lost your interest.
It's somewhat, and then it regained our interest when we got to Lewis. Lewis, the Gen Xer. You'll remember it at some point.
Okay.
It's at the higher level of the house because you're literally just ascending because your room is at the very top, which is very cool.
Yes. This is a weird house, by the way.
It's not fantasy, but it's very fictionalized to the point where old Grandpa Odin set his house to sail across the ocean.
Right.
And it's shipwrecked and so it's very fictionalized. And I didn't expect that going in. I thought it was going to be more door slams that you couldn't account for. Freaking when Barbara,
yeah.
you subdue the assailant and he falls, and you go down the stairs very slowly to see that he's gone. That's like, ooh. But then like the cartoon narration is grinding on me really bad.
I like the cartoon narration.
Bailey liked it too, but I was kind of like, come on, what are we doing here? I want more concrete things. Oh, we'll talk about the ending later. But my favorite part of the game was Lewis, who worked at a fish cannery. Thank you.
This is my favorite part as well.
Yes. And I'm just going to spoil it.
Okay, here comes the spoilers.
Yeah, he's chopping the heads off of fish and putting them on conveyor belts. And it's very clear how he, on account of his psychological issues, was just given this job because it was just like a simple job. And he like suffered through it because there was nothing for him to do other than decapitate these fish.
It's super repetitive, mechanical job.
Yeah, awful for a psych patient.
Yeah.
And so he starts to daydream. Cue this thought bubble of an isometric fantasy land that you yourself, Bailey drove the whole time. So she's telling me that she's like controlling this knight, this hero through this world.
Yes.
Aren't you sailing at some point?
Yeah, there is a sailing minigame where you like pick branches of the river to go down.
So much fun. All the while, the fish are still coming into frame, and you have to chop them. And although, like, if you don't chop them, can you still progress?
No.
Oh, that's great.
The fish will back up, and there'll be like a glut of them, and you need to keep getting through them.
Okay.
And keep going.
Bailey was just such a good employee. We never got to that point. Anyway. The music starts getting very fun, and all the NPCs in this fantasy land are dancing. And I was just being a total hype man, being like, "Yo, let's go!" Because she's progressing, and the daydream gets bigger, and it's like your hero was on a voyage to rescue this queen who was in search of, and it's like. Sinister serpents versus glamorous rainbows, and we're like, "Yo, rainbows, go!" And then we're just sailing through rainbows, and I could see the ending coming a mile away, as with you. Okay, so why is it that I liked that part of the game, but not the classic horror comic book and the Molly Zootopia simulator?
So what did separate the cannery section from everything else that made you like it so much more?
Just because of how his imagination got increasingly verbose. It was just way more than I thought it was going to be.
I see.
The twin controlling, which it blew me away, the presentation of it.
Yes, yeah. I do think that section, the cannery section, is brilliant.
Yeah.
Just because who hasn't been doing something kind of boring and found themselves daydreaming about something far more fantastical? It's so relatable.
It resonated with, yeah.
And the way it conveys it with the dual control scheme, where you weren't behind the driver wheels for this game, but ask Bailey, because the repetitive fish chopping minigame, you were literally embodying the character doing the same repetitive motion.
It becomes habituated yourself.
It became habituated for me playing. Yeah.
Which is perfect execution of the idea of role playing like a monotonous. It's almost Papers, Pleasian.
Yeah.
Where the primary action has become second nature, and now you're just entertaining the secondary action.
Right. And that kind of revelation couldn't have been pulled off if you didn't have the control scheme going there, which means just like watching the scene on YouTube won't resonate nearly as much.
Right. That's a great point. The hunting trip through the camera.
Yeah.
That was fine.
Interesting.
That was fine.
How about the baby in the bath?
I was getting hyped for that too.
You were getting hyped for that?
I was getting so hyped. I was like, let's drown ourselves.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, because I was getting checked out. And Bailey and we were just trying to get to the end of it. And the thing with Milton and the flip book was charming, but it kind of fell flat.
Oh, okay. That would be cool if you had played the studio's previous game, Unfinished Swan.
Yeah. And then, you get to the ending, and it's like there was no curse. And the moral of the story is that sometimes bad things happen to good people. And you walk out to the demolished house in the middle of the sea because the tide fell way back, and it has like a spooky element.
Mm-hmm.
And then Edith is just dead, and you're playing as the son because she was mad prego, and it's kind of like the end. And we're like, what? And we spent the next 20 minutes on Reddit being like, how did Barbara die? How did Edith die?
It's not super concerned with giving you all the concrete facts.
I thought it would have been better if it left you guessing that there was a curse.
Okay.
And I don't feel like it did.
It did come out and explicitly tell you, yeah, there was no curse. I'm kind of hazy on those details.
Yeah, you have to wonder Edie's vision or dream. Like, what happened to the kid that was flying the kite? That was Bailey's number one question.
Oh.
Like, did he just get knocked out by the storm?
I think so.
It needed to give me more.
No, it's just metaphors.
No, it was just jerking me off, leaving me at the edge. And I needed a resolution.
I see.
Edith blue-balled me to a certain extent.
Wow.
But I enjoyed half of the vignettes.
Imagine if we used that as the title of this episode.
No.
I'm sorry it didn't quite finish you off there, Heath.
Yeah, so that was Edith Finch. It was pretty weird, which harmed its coolness.
I see.
But that fish montage, that bumps it up. It gets 3 more points because of that.
Nice.
Anyway, so that's Edith Finch. And then time for Witcher update.
Ooh.
You know, I'm just going through the continent, doing Witcher things. I beat 2 rounds of Gwent against this blacksmith because I was trying to fix my swords because both of them are red. So I went to this armorer, and he can't fix them.
No.
So I'm like, all right, let me just do Gwent. And I beat him.
And did he give you a cool card as a reward?
No, I got 10 credits. What's the currency in this game?
It has multiple currencies. So it's maybe orans or florins.
Maybe.
At some point you'll want to go to the bank in Novigrad and exchange currencies.
I've been to Novigrad. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right?
Already?
Haven't I? Or at least everyone's talking about Novigrad like it is Novigrad. Oh no, I'm in Velen.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I'm running around with this one sorceress, and we are like on the wild hunt's tail.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, bruh, this is a late game enemy. What are we doing here? And I'm in this dungeon, and I am up against this troll boss. This is the second boss.
Okay.
Right? He's just a big rock monster. And she's casting spells, and I'm supposed to kill it. But both my swords are red.
Yeah, you need to repair them.
Yeah, I went to an armorer, and he couldn't do it.
I see.
And I went to a grindstone, and it was like, your weapons are improved.
Yeah.
And I went to like another bench, and it's like, your weapons are improved. And I'm like, but they're red, though.
I played through the majority of The Witcher 3 with red swords.
Chris.
So don't be too discouraged that your equipment is in poor shape.
The red sword means you do less damage?
Right. The sword's damage output is reduced.
Okay.
Until it gets repaired.
And it's not prohibitively so?
No. What difficulty are you playing on?
Normal.
Okay. Yeah, rest assured, I played on like one step above normal, and the fact that my swords were garbage quality did not affect my ability to play well.
Okay, yeah, because peasants keep saying like, "Oh, you rusted your blade," like, and it's like, shut up. So what else am I doing besides fighting this boss that is very difficult on account of my red swords? I met up with an internal fire guy, and he was like, "We got to burn these bodies to bless them." And you burn 3 bodies, and then like another guy is around, and he's like, "Yo, did you know that he's like an investor for something? What's this quest?"
I do recall the quest.
He bought something that was like Nessian trite or I don't know. And you go back and you're like, "Hey, one of them was alive and they told me about your shady business." And he's like, "Oh, I could buy the truth from you," kind of thing. And you're like, "I'm a witcher. I can't be bought." but you could pay me though, but I can't be bought. And then he fights you if you decline the bribe.
Yes, he does, with 2 goons, right?
Yeah, and you cut down those goons, and you feel all better for it. So that's like a cool thing. And like I said, I beat Gwent. I just beat Gwent.
It's over.
Yeah, because you just prioritize one type of unit. Like I'll save all my catapults for the last thing.
Okay.
And then the opponent will be like, aha, fog, right? Because fog, or the other one, rain. Aha, rain.
Reduce one of the rows.
Yeah, and then you just hit him with sunny day. And then you win the game. Gwent is the easiest game in the world now.
It'll get slightly more complex, but yeah, this version of Gwent is pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
How full is your quest log right now? Are you like being pulled in a bunch of different directions? Or?
We're looking for details for Siri, and I have like a couple of contracts that are like missing person. And I walked into this cave and found like the beginnings of a quest, and then I go to the thing and I see that the level recommendation for it, and I'm level like 5, and it's recommending you be 33.
Ooh,
so I just get out of that cave.
You should leave that cave.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that a cool adventure awaits. Pause. Look at the level recommendation. Then it's like, not for me, and you gotta get out of there.
That was a criticism you had of Odyssey as well.
Yeah. What is it with these games? They're all the same to me. Yeah, I'm getting a quest or 2. Oh my god. Oh, I had to sneeze, but I fought it, and it fought me back.
So sounds like nothing too outrageous has happened since your last Witcher update.
No, I mean, I'm just visiting towns, and like the White Hunt is like killing everything.
Wild Hunt.
What did I say?
The White Hunt.
Yeah, he's white and bluish because of the ice.
Okay.
So the Wild Hunt, he's around, and I'm getting asked for like a pass. There's only one way to get into this area if you have a pass.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to spend that money. And he's like, okay, you can help my brother who's cleaning up battlefields. He's getting harassed by monsters. And you're like, okay, yeah. And you go over to the battlefield, and then the monsters come in, and they're level 9. So it's like, see ya. Yes. And you just keep going to Velen. And yeah, so it's going.
The gated content problem with level restrictions will become less of an issue as you go on.
Okay.
So it's a little harsh in the early game when you're only level 5 and a bunch of the stuff is just out of reach.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Is that a summation of everything we played this week?
It is.
All right. Then how about we take our first break, and when we come back, we will have lots of news. So much news. See you then. Heath, you look awfully animated.
Let's go. We have like so much to talk about, don't we?
We do, yes. So welcome to Headline Dining, our news segment where we bring you big news stories in the form of entrees and smaller stories in the form of sides. This time it might just be all entree, Heath. Sides may be unnecessary because, as I'm sure you know, and as our audience probably has heard, Sony had a huge future of gaming presentation showing off their PlayStation 5 and its lineup of games. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details, this was basically a live stream where Sony showed 26 PlayStation 5 games that I'm sure many of which will also land on other platforms as well as at the very end, they showed the actual design of the console for the very first time.
It looks like a router.
I have heard that being thrown around. I think what makes the most sense is to tackle this in chronological order, so we'll talk about the design of the console at the very end. But before we get into the games, what did you think of the presentation overall, Heath?
I mean, I didn't watch the presentation.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
Then I guess you can't answer this question very well.
No.
I did watch the presentation. It ran for about an hour. I was super excited for it. Just my high-level thoughts were, it came across at a very nice clip. It was trailer after trailer after trailer with occasionally this interstitial talking head spokesperson talking to you with a minimalist background. I mean, I don't want to rail on that Microsoft third-party presentation anymore, but while that seemed very cobbled together with people live streaming from their rooms, this had a lot more professionalism behind it.
What's the gold standard for video game online conference?
Probably like Nintendo's Directs.
Nintendo Directs.
This felt like it would have been right at home being shown at an actual E3 press conference. The production values were really high. They were good. I had already thrown this term around. It felt like Microsoft's presentation was this unforced error. Like it didn't seem like they were ready to show it, but they went ahead with it anyway, which just makes me question it even more. But this one, while I don't think the showmanship here is indicative of like, oh, of course the PS5 is going to be way better than the Xbox Series X. That's pretty irrelevant. I did appreciate the higher presentation values of this presentation. So those are my high-level thoughts. Let's get into the games. They showed
Spider-Man.
They showed 26 games at this presentation. Here's my proposal for you, Heath. We're going to go through them very granularly, but if at any time we hit a game, we have the option of saying, shall we move on? And if the other person responds, we shall, let's just move on.
Wow.
So we can potentially speed this process up a little bit. Chronological order, like I said. Hey, Heath, when you want to show the next generation of consoles,
Yeah.
what better way to kick it off by showing a game from 2013?
Yeah.
So the first game they showed was Grand Theft Auto 5.
Which debuted on the PS3 and the PS4.
Right, PS3 originally.
Right.
Was since ported to the PS4, is now evidently being ported to the PS5. Also, all the gameplay they showed was actually running on a PS4, so they didn't even have the new version to show off just yet. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts, Heath?
Well, I mean, it's just so funny, the legs that GTA 5. It really just goes to show how much of an impact culturally that game has. Where it just speaks to next gen. Everyone's just we're so excited for GTA 6 that we're using GTA 5 to sell 8th generation consoles.
It has the biggest legs in the business.
Yes.
It was like one of the best-selling games on PS3, best-selling games on PS4. Presumably, GTA 5 will once again be one of the best-selling games on the PS5.
Imagine the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing they show to like sell the console is footage of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
But that's really one of my only criticisms here. That announcement is fine. I just wouldn't have led with it. Throw that in the middle somewhere. Okay, next we had Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Okay.
Yeah. So being made by Insomniac. Follow-up to 2018 Spider-Man.
Follow-up, but not sequel.
Yeah, a little bit of ambiguity around there because they didn't slap a 2 on the end. And they've been throwing around this terms like standalone and expansion to describe this game. I think it's probably like a Uncharted Lost Legacy type of situation.
You're just taking that straight from Jason.
Jason Schreier?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like him and everyone else has already made the comparison.
Yeah.
Who can even attribute who was the first person to say that?
I did just then.
But also like an infamous First Light situation, which was like the standalone to Second Son. So, new protagonist here, Miles Morales, which makes a lot of sense if you played the Spider-Man game.
He was in the first one.
He was, and he was getting like set up to be a new protagonist.
Very much so.
So that seems cool.
Will you be able to kill people in this game?
No. I don't. I'm not a Spider-Man expert. Does Miles kill people?
No, but Peter Parker sure did.
Because of being thrown off buildings and things like that?
You know what I'm referencing, right? Yeah,
just
throwing people off buildings.
The blunt force trauma he inflicts on people?
Yeah, it's just like neck snapping attacks. Polygon did a video especially of web sticking a bad guy to a burning car and doing nothing as it explodes.
Gotcha.
How could it not kill them? Hopefully Miles doesn't kill as many people as Peter.
We can hope. What I'm most excited about this one is in this nerdy like tech deep dive that happened a while ago, they were showing off the power of the PS5 SSD. and they were showing how Spider-Man on PS4, the swing speed of Spider-Man, the max speed you could go in Spider-Man was simply the product of how fast they could render the city of Manhattan. That was what capped how fast you could swing around the city.
So if you were to boost the swing speed in the first Spider-Man game by 10%,
then you would eventually pass by the buildings as the game failed to load them in time.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking screen tearing.
Right. We're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about like
rendering buildings.
Buildings would wait. Tell me this again.
You know, like a video game draw distance. How far out can you render the environment around the character?
Oh, you would see the buildings enter like the fog.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have ruined it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm excited, what they've been touting is how fast this SSD is on the PS5.
Or
maybe,
or like if you're racing in Red Dead Redemption so fast, your horse is so fast that like
your
cacti are popping into existence
right behind you. Yeah.
Or just like right beside you. Yeah.
Beside you.
Gotcha. Okay.
So one of the main appeals of the Spider-Man games is the traversal. If this theoretically lets you go a lot faster, that would be awesome. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
For this Miles Morales
This is
game.
like he's taking a run at Sonic.
The fastest video game character.
Yeah. Sony and Sega are going to have a beef.
All right.
Shall we move on?
We shall. Gran Turismo 7.
Racing games.
Yes.
Shall we move on?
We shall. Next.
Wait, is there anything funny about Gran Turismo? Do they do anything interesting?
I've got nothing for you.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. First thought about this one was, whoa, Insomniac.
People are going nuts for that girl
busy.
character.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who. That's a new character, right?
Yeah. But that's the first thing. The second thing.
Second thing was, whoa, Insomniac is really busy because they also make Spider-Man, which surprisingly is coming out this year. That's a launch title.
Yeah, that's nuts.
No release date for this Ratchet and Clank game, but presumably that Sony acquisition money has been really helping Insomniac make a lot of products at once.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Insomniac is their
new favorite studio.
Yeah.
So this one looks cool. It looks like more Ratchet and Clank. I've only played one of the Ratchet and Clank games, so I'm by no means an expert.
How much Banjo-Kazooie is it?
Yeah, like it's of that era kind of with 3D platforming, but a lot more shooty. The Ratchet and Clank games have a lot more shooting in them. The one thing in that subtitle of the game, Rift Apart, this game lets you open rifts in it, which...
Portal?
Kind of. You do Portal, but instead of going from like one area to another area in the same level...
Oh, Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
There you go.
You can apparently, I guess, like multiple levels are simultaneously loaded on top of each other. And by opening one of these rifts, you instantly go to a different kind of version of the level, or maybe a different level entirely,
alternate,
which is a mechanic we haven't seen too much. We've seen it a little bit in the time shenanigans happening in Titanfall 2. We've seen it a little bit in some Dishonored 2 stuff. But I think it's a mechanic that has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see what Ratchet and Clank does with it.
Cool.
Next up, Project Athea from Square Enix. It looks like
They make Kingdom Hearts.
They do? This has nothing to do with that, however. This is a new IP. It looks magical wilderness, almost like a druid kind of thing going on.
Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Maybe. It's like third-person action. They didn't show very much.
That's not Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
No, that's a Metroidvania.
Third-person action, that's...
Yeah.
Senua's Saga.
Not a whole lot to go on here. There were some scary like enemy designs in this one, but
Senua's Saga.
Yeah, like Senua's Saga. I would say it has a pretty similar aesthetic to that. That's Project Athea, which does not have a date on it just yet. Here's one that does have a date. Coming in 2021, we have this game called Stray. It has cats in it.
Oh, fun. That's a fun title. Yeah.
It's very much like a tone piece cinematic they showed, but it's apparently this like neon lit Tokyo streets, presumably in the future because it's all inhabited by robots. And there's also some cats walking around. And then they do a close up on the cat. And this tells me nothing about what the gameplay is going to be like, but if you get to play as a cat, it seems pretty fun.
Yeah.
Very colorful too. So I like that.
Okay.
That's Stray. Probably like more of an indie type game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here was that allusion I made to Housemarque. We have a new Housemarque game coming.
Yeah.
This one is called Returnal. So they make arcade games, right? They're trying to separate themselves from their arcade game pedigree, and this seems like the first game to be of that new ilk. It's called Returnal. You're this woman who is in this like sci-fi environment, and it almost seems like a roguelike because the narration of the trailer keeps having her say, oh, I have to die and try again, die and try again.
Oh.
It looks like a third-person shooter with almost like bullet hell elements because the projectiles being shot at you are kind of slow so you can dodge past them.
Oh.
Almost like Nier Automata-esque.
Almost like Remember Me?
I know nothing about Remember Me. I guess the one surprising thing about Returnal is Housemarque, who makes super arcadey games, it looks like they're doing mocap because this was like a realistic woman's face
Cool.
on your character.
Cool.
Which they've never done before.
No.
So that was that. Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Do you remember Sackboy?
Little Big Planet.
Yeah. The brown mascot character.
Yeah.
He apparently has his own game now, and it's going to be a 3D platformer.
Okay.
All right, I think that's all we needed to say. Destruction All-Stars.
Is that PlayStation All-Stars?
No, it's not. They are unrelated. But when I saw the title, I made the same little connection there.
PlayStation All-Stars is Sony's version of Super Smash Bros.
Which only came with one entry in that franchise because it wasn't super well received, was
The
it?
roster included all of your favorite Sony characters like Kratos and Nathan Drake and Parappa the Rapper and Infamous and Rabbids.
I don't think so.
No.
They did have some fun third-party choices like the Big Daddy from BioShock. He was in there.
Yeah.
But
just pales in comparison
to Nintendo's roster.
when it comes to super franchise rock'em sock'em roster madness. But Destruction
All-Stars. This looks like Rocket League if it was about Demolition Derby.
Oh, bad. That's the exact thing it shouldn't be.
And it also has like Fortnite-esque looking characters in it.
I don't like
who
this.
are driving the cars. I don't think you were alone in disliking this, Heath. Maybe this is being harsh.
The whole thing about Rocket League is that it's not Demolition Derby.
Yeah. It's about soccer.
Yeah. Imagine if Lethal League was baseball.
Wait, isn't Lethal League the more Demolition Derby version of baseball?
You're using Demolition Derby very generously.
Yeah. Well, I guess the jury's still out, but our initial impression is meh. Next, Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. It looks cool. It looks it almost looks Pixar-esque. It's like a girl, vaguely maybe some like Eastern themes, settings, but she's in a forest with like spirits, and it looks like a cool action-adventure game that's maybe kid-friendly. It looks very pretty. I'll give it that much.
Okay.
Super pretty. Yeah. This next one I'm pretty jazzed about. It's called Goodbye Volcano High. This is a 2D aesthetic, like hand-drawn artwork kind of style. It's a bunch of like
students,
vaguely monster-esque students in a high school, presumably doing teenage drama-esque things. So the high school setting made me immediately think of Life is Strange. The monster-like characters made me think of like Night in the Woods because those are like anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah.
But they're teenagers. They're doing
real
life issues as animals. So this may be a blending of those two. It seemed to be of that vein. I really like the art style. It's super pretty.
How do you win?
It's not one. I don't think you're going to be able to win.
You just played through it for the experience.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks cool. Next game was Oddworld Soulstorm.
You remember Oddworld?
Do you?
Is that a franchise?
It is a franchise.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard of it.
I think the main one is like Oddworld Abe's Odyssey is maybe like the first. I know nothing about the Oddworld franchise at all. I think they're like 2D platformers, but I'm not even sure of that.
Do you get to draw things?
No. You've got like your protagonist is this monster-looking guy.
Okay.
This trailer, Heath, maybe this has always been the case for the Oddworld games. This trailer was super dark. At the end, your character's mouth is sewn shut, and he's like taking a knife to it to like
so pry it open.
pry open his sealed lips.
Yeah. Ew.
And there's like, I think there's like genocide going on.
Man, what's it with Sony and Microsoft giving us weird imagery with that and Scorn?
And Scorn.
Why can't games be Nintendo?
Hey, I hear what you're saying. I don't think that's a fair criticism to this presentation because there were a lot of different like art styles and tones on display here on Sony's roster of games. These things like Goodbye Volcano High, that seems
that's charming.
That's
enough.
charming and cute.
Yeah.
There were a lot of cute. We're getting some really cute games coming up.
Here we go.
But not this one because this one's spooky. It's called Ghostwire Tokyo,
which is a Fatal Frame.
No, this is the
explain. You gotta explain what I mean. So Fatal Frame is like an old Japanese game where you're a girl in like a haunted house and spirits will come at you and you have to get a photo of them as a means of subduing them. Frame being the frame of the camera.
Yeah.
So, but this is not. Sorry, say the title again.
This is Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ghostwire Tokyo. Okay, so Wire. So you are an IT person, and you are installing a high-speed internet in these haunted Japanese Shinto shrines.
Maybe.
And they haunt you.
I
with
can't,
bad bandwidth.
I can't confirm whether or not your protagonist works in IT or not.
Okay.
It's from Tango Gameworks, the makers of The Evil Within.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This one's first person, and Evil Within, it's like third-person survival horror games.
Yep.
This one, based on the tone of the trailer they showed, it almost looks like the horror is more of an aesthetic than like a genre. It doesn't look super scary.
Like Luigi's Mansion.
Like Luigi's Mansion.
I was searching for a better comparison to that.
I mean,
is there nothing when it comes to horror as an aesthetic and not a genre? Is there nothing between this and Luigi's Mansion?
It looks like more of a first-person, straight-up combat game. You're like shooting magic out of your hands.
Oh, okay.
And you're in Tokyo,
Uh-huh.
so there are like Shinto shrines you can go to and things like that. But it seems interesting.
Okay.
It definitely was a departure from what I was expecting. I was thinking it would
Evil
be like
Within.
it would lean into psychological horror.
Yeah.
Well, this seems a lot more popcorny.
Okay.
We have Jet the Far Shore. This is from Super Brothers, who
makers
made
of-
Sword and Sorcery. Shall we move on?
Well, wait. What would I call it?
This almost looks like maybe like a space simulation game.
Okay.
It has a weird
Like
art style.
Kerbal?
Maybe not that technical, but possibly.
I like space simulation.
You do. That's true.
In fact, by next episode, Outer Wilds will be available on Steam.
And I am frothing at the mouth.
You need to drop everything.
Uh-huh.
I don't care if what's another game you want that releases on Steam the same day.
Well, The Last of Us Part 2 comes out the day after.
You need to beat it before that comes out.
I see.
So space simulations, we like them, but yes, let's move on.
Okay, Heath, guess what? This next one is called Godfall.
Is that God Hand?
No. Godfall, which was shown at the Game Awards last year, they described it as the first looter slasher, which makes me cringe.
No, I like that though.
Yeah, it's a play on looter shooter.
Yeah.
This game, watching its trailer, reminded me I was watching a video game press conference because suddenly there was loud dubstep playing and lots of combat on display.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Previously, like I really appreciate that up until now, a lot of these games seemed really artistic and lots of tones on display. This was standard. It was almost like a Borderlands aesthetic, which makes a lot of sense because it's from Gearbox.
Okay.
Presumably, it's this melee-focused loot grinding game that's Godfall.
I like that.
It looks pretty.
pretty in a
Visually.
Borderlands way?
Like a high fidelity kind of way.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Next, okay. This one was cool. It was called Solar Ash, which is from the makers of Hyper Light Drifter. And you know Hyper Light Drifter, and that's like a 2D game. This game is in 3D. And at the very end splash screen, it shows your protagonist looking out over this vast landscape. So maybe this is like a much greater scale and scope than Hyper Light Drifter
Dark
was.
Souls?
They didn't show off a lot of combat.
No, just when you said massive landscape.
Yeah.
The whole thing about Dark Souls is like, see that castle? You can get in it.
Gotcha. Potentially. Yeah, it could be like that.
Okay.
Also, like some strong use of like primary colors in this one. It had a very...
Same with Hyperlight. Nah, Hyperlight's kind of more muted. Or not even primary. It's a lot of like magentas and greens.
That's true, yeah. But I would say, once again, they have found a color palette that is really distinct in this one. Moving on. Oh, guess what? Hitman 3 got announced.
Are they going to do the same sort of style?
You mean like, yeah, like...
Seasonal missions?
So, Hitman 1, the 2016 reboot, that was released episodically. Hitman 2 was not. It just came out all at once. You got the full thing. This is another all-at-once game. It's coming in January of 2021, so pretty soon. And I breathed a sigh of relief for this one, just because, anecdotally, I've heard these Hitman reboots haven't been super big sellers. And also the studio, IO Interactive, they just went through a separation with Square Enix.
Right.
So now their feet are to the fire. It's like do or die time. They don't have that publisher security blanket. So I'm glad that this got greenlit and they are continuing to make Hitman content, which is apparently great. I played a little bit of it. I'm eager to play more.
You played a little bit of this?
Of Hitman 1.
Okay, yeah.
The reboot. I talked about it a few months ago.
No, I remember.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't played Hitman 3.
And then in the trailer for this, what's the mission? Do they do the fashion show again? Do they do like a...
It showed Agent 47 scaling this skyscraper in what looked like super rich, bougie Dubai or something
glamorous.
like that.
Dubai.
And
okay.
presumably gonna like...
Can I dress up as a Saudi prince?
I would be surprised if you couldn't.
Yay.
So yeah, they go to...
That's gonna look so goofy with his complexion.
Which is what you want.
Yeah.
So I was super happy to see Hitman 3 be announced. Here's a fun one. Astro's Playroom.
We've already done this. This is the VR thing you loved.
Yeah, you're talking about Astrobot Rescue Mission.
Yeah, the same thing.
Which is one of the best VR games ever, apparently.
Yeah.
I haven't played it.
Astro's Playroom.
So this game, I haven't heard too many people call attention to this. Astro's Playroom actually comes pre-installed on every PS5.
Oh, it's a Wii Sports.
It's a Wii Sports. It's a pack-in game. So presumably, it's going to like show you the cool features that come on
the hardware showcase.
On the controller.
Yeah.
The Dual Sense, as they're calling it.
It's not DualShock?
It's not the DualShock 5.
Okay.
They renamed it the Dual Sense.
Man, I'm going to call it the DualShock, though.
That's going to be a tough habit to break, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so... It's such a cool name.
I guess what's helping me differentiate itself in my head is that this controller is like bright white, which is surprising as a PlayStation controller.
Oh, yeah, I made the Stormtrooper joke.
You're right. Yeah, you did. I think it looks cool.
Deuce. If you say it too fast, it's like deuces.
Yeah.
Deucents.
So that's cool that it's like it's a nice value add.
Okay, so it's the same franchise, though, Astro.
It is the same franchise.
And you're rescuing things with your DualSense.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it is a pack-in makes me almost think it's like a series of tech demos instead of like a real game.
Yeah, it's a 1-2 switch. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we'll be blown away and it'll be as innovative as the original Astrobot, potentially.
Okay.
Maybe. Moving on to my favorite indie game they showed at this press conference, the one that did the most for me.
Deathloop.
This one is called Little Devil Inside. So, Heath, this game it's almost like a clay aesthetic to it. Clay diorama is how I would describe it. Clay is maybe slightly off base, but it's in the right ballpark. And it shows this old man, and he's like in bed, and then taking a bath, and then sitting on the toilet pooping. and he's just doing he's walking down this like European street, and he's doing the most mundane things. And in between all of these cuts, it's showing this younger boy adventurer and like very diverse locales. He's like on a desert, and then he's in a forest riding like a mule, hunting a bear with a gun. And then he's like scaling a cliff. And then there's like an army, and it's just going back and forth between this kid going on adventures and this old man reading a newspaper.
Living out his life, yeah.
And I don't know what the connection is there. At one point, it shows them both in the same scene. So it's called Little Devil Inside. At first, I thought, oh, is this happening like inside the old man's head, maybe? But presumably that's not the case, since it shows them in the same room together. I don't know what to make of this game, but...
It sounds very Annapurna.
It does sound Annapurna. It's also tough for me to nail down exactly what the scope of this game is, because it did show the kid adventuring in like tons of different environments.
It'll be 4 hours.
You think so?
Yeah, 4 on the dot.
This game will either be like 4 hours or
14
or like 50. I don't know. It looked so good. If you go check out any trailer, I would say watch that one. It's really cool.
Okay.
Okay, we have the latest installment in the NBA 2K franchise.
Oh boy.
NBA 2K21.
Are they bringing back Spike Lee?
I don't know. I fast forwarded through this section of the presentation.
Spike Lee he did a story mode for NBA 2K, the Living the Dream thing.
Yeah.
Remember some of the worst voice acting you've ever heard?
Oh.
That's that.
I do recall that. Shall we move on?
Yes.
All right. You want to hear about bug snacks, Heath?
Bug snacks?
Bug snacks.
Like bugs that are snack or snacks that bugs eat?
Both, I think. This is from the makers of Octodad.
Oh, okay.
So this is a comedic game.
Yeah.
It opens with this strawberry that then sprouts legs and starts crawling around because it's a bug snack, and then a walrus eats it. So you're on this island. People have made comparisons to like Animal Crossing, but there's this ecosystem going on where bugs, which are fruits, are getting eaten, and I think if you eat a lot of them, you evolve or something like that. That description could be off base because I did not know what I was looking at this game, but it seems to have a very cheery, endearing tone to it.
Okay.
Yeah. And presumably it's from the makers of Octodad, so maybe there's some control scheme gag going on.
Oh yeah, we can trust the Octodad team. That's the funniest game I'll never play.
So yeah, hopefully it is as much fun as Octodad. Here's a heavy hitter, Heath. From the cream of the crop when it comes to remakes, this is Blue Point making this game. We're getting a Demon's Souls remake.
Ooh, Demon's Souls, the makers of Dark Souls. That's a weird sentence.
The precursor to Dark Souls.
Yeah, yes.
From Software. 2009, this was a game stranded on the PS3. Never got ported to any other system. The PS4 is not backwards compatible, so you can't play it on that.
And it's unplayable as is.
Yeah.
Now that we have all the modern conventions.
Right. Also, I want to say there was a news story a little while back where they you know how Dark Souls has this unconventional multiplayer and you can invade someone else's game?
PvP, yeah.
Yeah. I think those servers were taken down for Demon's Souls. So it's now an exclusively single player game. And so they're bringing it back and it looks gorgeous. Really good.
What sets it apart from the Bloodborns and the Dark Soulses?
It almost looks a little more cartoony. Just a little bit.
When you say cartoony, are we talking like League of Legends?
That would be way too cartoony. Because Dark Souls looks super serious. Like some of the Grim Reaper guys looked a little more like spooky, scary skeleton compared to reanimated corpse. But it's still going to be a serious game. What makes Demon's Souls different from Dark Souls is that Dark Souls is this interconnected world, while Demon's Souls is level-based.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is going to be significant because there are so many more From Software fans in 2020 than there were back in 2009.
Right.
So for a lot of people, this will be their first time playing this highly critically acclaimed entry in the Soulsborne franchise. So that's cool, and I'm glad they're bringing it back. This would have been more surprising if it hadn't been heavily rumored. that this was the remake Bluepoint had been working on.
Oh, was it?
I think it was like they're either doing this or they were doing like the original Metal Gear Solid. Those were the two front runners. Either one of those would have been a winner.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see.
This is called Demon Souls 2?
No, it's just called Demon Souls. This is a remake.
Oh, they pulled a Modern Warfare. They pulled a Doom.
Well, I would consider those reboots. This is the original game.
Oh, it's a remaster.
Yeah, but they're like making it from scratch. It looks night and day different.
Uh-huh.
But the gameplay will probably be almost identical.
Okay.
And you will be going through the same levels. This is like, instead of this being a Final Fantasy VII remake, this is more of like a Spyro Reignited trilogy remake.
And the fans listen to that and go, oh, yeah.
People are high on this one.
Okay.
I think I am.
What's Scott think of that?
I have to imagine Scott, he's a From Software purist.
Yeah, he's my go-to.
He's excited for this.
Okay.
Scott's big on PC, and there's no way he was going to buy a PS3, so he's super happy about this.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Next up, my favorite game that was shown.
Deathloop
from Arcane Studios. I'm a simple man, Heath. As soon as they showed that your character has a blink-like ability from Dishonored, I was sold.
Blink is the
quick teleportation ability.
Yeah.
Where you can pick a spot in your environment and immediately warp there. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah, the premise of this game is awfully close to Dishonored. You play as an assassin. You have like 8 targets, and you need to eliminate them all.
It's a dystopian monarchy.
Cool aesthetic. So it is not taking place inside the Dishonored universe. It is a more contemporary setting, it looks like.
Is it still kind of very smooth characters?
Maybe,
talk about the art style.
Yeah. They're smooth, but maybe not Dishonored smooth. There are a lot of masked characters and a lot of like partying and revelry going on.
Oh, masquerade.
Which almost makes it even more of like a BioShock comparison. Because of all the masked splicers in BioShock. So Dishonored already had some BioShock DNA in it. Maybe they're even leaning into it further, especially because your arsenal, it looks a lot more gun heavy in this game. Instead of Dishonored, which is a lot of knife stabby,
Yep.
this looks a lot more shooty.
But still stealthy?
But still stealthy because you're an assassin. There is a rival assassin simultaneously coming for you.
Ooh, Gary?
Gary?
That's a Pokemon joke.
Oh, your rival. Got it. It almost seems like an actual real-life player could inhabit this rival assassin at certain times.
What was the game we referenced yesterday that, when I say yesterday, I mean the previous episode.
Last episode. Yes, because Arcane canceled a game with this same kind of mechanic.
Yeah, the last one you mentioned.
Right, which I'm blanking on the name, but we talked about it last episode.
Yeah.
It was an experimental multiplayer game being developed by Arcane, which it seems like they have carved out that mechanic and dropped it into Deathloop. Also, the title, Death Loop, apparently if you die, you get reset back some certain amount of time to like the beginning of the assassination, which almost makes it seem like a roguelike. And I am hesitantly optimistic about that. Because I'm going to have to see how they execute on it. The Dishonored levels are really long, and there's like a lot of things to uncover. And I wouldn't want to die, start the level over, and have to loot the same room I already looted twice before.
Right.
That sounds really boring.
Hide all those bodies again.
Yeah. So it remains to be seen like how randomized these levels are going to be. If they are, because all the Dishonored levels.
Wait through the guard's walking cycle.
Yeah. The Dishonored levels are meticulously crafted. Well, if this introduces randomization to keep it fresh, like I said, I'm hesitantly optimistic that they could maybe mess it up. But I really want to be an assassin with superpowers again. And this seems like it's going to let me do that. And it has a really cool art style. And I am very excited for Deathloop.
And that's coming this year.
That is coming this year. It had a 2020 release date on it.
All right.
Which, that was maybe the most exciting part. We don't have that long to wait. I dare you to fight me on getting that in your fantasy publisher draft.
You can have it.
All right. There are only 3 left. 2 of the 3 are heavy hitters. We got the announcement for Resident Evil 8 Village.
Oh, yeah. That's the remake.
No? It's 8. This is a new entry in the long-running Resident Evil franchise.
Uh-huh.
And they got me. They pulled a visual gag at the end where when the title card appears, it says Village. And then the VILL starts to become boldened, which is Roman numeral 8. And then Resident Evil appears at the bottom of the screen. I thought it was going to be a new IP called Village. And then they got me. It's the new Resident Evil game.
Interesting. When I think of Resident Evil Village, I think of like trying to escape a village in Resident Evil 4 and 6.
I thought Resident Evil 4, you're trying to rescue the president's daughter.
Uh-huh. But there's all like these fishmonger people.
Yeah. So this one has like a tundra setting.
Okay.
It's snowy. You're in this like dilapidated village, but there's also like this huge castle right next door with like Gothic architecture and nobility living there. And the nobility seem a little creepy, and the inhabitants of the village seem a little creepy. And I think there are werewolves in this one. Honestly, even before I knew this was a Resident Evil game, I thought it looked pretty appealing, and horror games don't usually do it for me. So this just cemented the fact in my mind that I need to try the Resident Evil games, because this looks really cool.
So let's talk about Resident Evil as a franchise.
Sure.
Because they've already remade Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Right? No, not 1.
They did do a 1 remake, but it was not as recent as the 2 and 3 remakes.
Oh, okay. And the 2 and 3 remakes are the ones that got everybody all in a tizzy.
Yeah.
And then Resident Evil 7 was interesting.
Well received. Yeah.
And Resident Evil 8 is now coming.
8 is also copying the first person perspective that debuted in 7. So they're maintaining that.
Ah, okay. They are assuredly going to remake Resident Evil 4 because that's arguably one of the better entries.
For a lot of people, that is their favorite. So yes. Yeah.
At what point, and you can see where I'm going with this. So they're going to remake Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And then maybe 5.
5 and 6 is where it gets interesting because those are the two people don't like.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Especially 6.
Yeah. So what kind of world are we going to live in where they've remade 5 and 6?
Uh-huh.
And the remake team has like caught up to the current timeline, and it's like, do we remake Resident Evil 7? When like the people who made Resident Evil 7 by this point are working on like Resident Evil 9, and they're like, wait, we just made that.
Yeah.
So that's like, and they start to like recanonize the whole universe.
My prediction, Heath, is once they catch up, it'll just be the world serpent eating itself. It'll be a recursive loop. They go back to the first one and do a second remaster and just work their way back up the chain.
That would be ridiculous.
It'll be the game franchise that never dies.
Yeah, it's constantly like going into a chrysalis and emerging a new butterfly.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Resident Evil 8 has the attaché case in it for inventory management, which was a thing in Resident Evil 4. Your inventory would take up like physical space. Oh no, that's also in 2 and 3, right?
I think so.
Right, where you pick up a shotgun and it occupies more physical space than your healing item or ammo. Or
it's literally inventory management. You're like making enough room.
You have to like rotate and organize your virtual suitcase.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Prey did that as well.
Okay, yeah.
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 It's cool.
It is cool.
Which brings us to Pragmata, which is coming in 2022. There's like an astronaut on a city street, and he like reaches out and touches this young girl, and then they end up on the moon, and it's all photorealistic.
How Kojima?
The whole time I was watching this trailer, I was waiting for a game by Hideo Kojima to pop up because the astronaut looks straight out of Death Stranding.
Okay.
But it is, in fact, not a Hideo Kojima game. It's being made by Capcom. It's a new IP, and we know nothing else besides that.
You love Capcom.
I do like Capcom quite a bit. So that's maybe like the furthest out game of this entire presentation because they put 2022 on that one.
Okay. Space Capcom game.
Yes, Space Capcom game.
Pragmata.
And then finally, we got the announcement of Horizon 2 Forbidden West.
When's that coming out?
That's the biggest surprise. No date on that one.
No!
Which is tragic for you.
Yeah.
Because it's on your fantasy draft lineup.
It was.
And yeah, I would have expected that way before Spider-Man being at launch.
Dang.
So that is unfortunate.
Sorry, what's it called? Wild West?
Forbidden West.
Okay.
Ooh. So the West is alluding to the fact that Aloy travels to the West Coast of the U.S.
She sure does.
And she will be fighting more robot dinosaurs.
Yep.
And it looks stunning. It looks really good visually. It'll definitely be like a graphical showcase for the console.
No doubt.
And this is on the back of the news that they're bringing Horizon Zero Dawn, the first one, to Steam this year. So get excited for that.
I could play it.
You could play it.
I could.
You have famously trashed on that game, which it's a great game.
It looks fine.
I don't know where your hatred comes from.
It's just a bunch of robo dinos.
Horizon 2 looks great, I think. More of the same, more or less. I don't know what'll differentiate it just yet.
Okay.
Now the part I think you're most excited about, Heath, let's talk about what that console looks like. You said it looks like a router.
Did you see the JoJo reference?
No.
Wait, is that it? Yeah, just kind of. Although I saw this one. So it looks like a big old space module.
Yeah. So
And it's the biggest it's ever been.
I mean, they didn't show it side by side. We don't know exactly how big it is.
I saw how big the consoles was.
Oh, okay.
Look at all these boyos.
It is the tallest of tall.
And it's friggin' chonky
Yeah, it's huge.
compared to all those things.
I mean, the Xbox Series X has more girth to it.
And which is more important?
So just so people at home know, the PS5 looks like this black rectangular box, but on either side of it, forming a sandwich, are these white flaps. And visually, the flaps are they have a curve to them. I worry about them like catching on something and snapping off.
Yeah, if you're rushing by because you just bought the latest game, your jacket will catch like a yeah.
It doesn't look super stable, I'd say. Also, with the curves on the white flaps, does it look like it'll rest horizontally flat, or will there be like...
No, you're not going to rest this horizontally. It's got a base.
Evidently, you can put it on its side, but it doesn't look like it was intended to do that.
Yeah.
Are you a side person or a vertical console person?
I mean, of all the consoles in my house, your Switch is in a dock. It doesn't count. Yeah, they're on the side.
Yeah, I'm a side person as well.
Yeah.
Only one I ever had vertical was the Wii, which had a stand. So I guess if it has a great stand, maybe keeping it
I put this
vertical.
guy upright.
You put the original Xbox 360 upright?
For a time.
I see. My Xbox 360 was always on its side. Do you like it, Heath? Do you like the design of this new console?
I do. I like how they changed it up. It's not just the skyscrapers that were the PS4.
Yeah, the PS4 is more of like a parallelogram. Personally, I think I lean towards the not liking it side. However, as soon as you throw this thing into your entertainment system, the way it looks becomes largely irrelevant. I never look at my consoles. It's all functionality over form for me. As soon as it's going to become like the most blasé thing in my room almost immediately. Yeah. And I'll forget it exists and what it looks like.
You'll habituate to it really fast.
So ultimately, I don't think the look is all that important, but it's a weird one.
Did we talk about that disk drive?
Yeah. It comes with 2 different SKUs to it.
Yep.
Much how like the Xbox released the SAD edition, this one is launching with a disk drive and a disk drive-less console SKU. Presumably, there'll be some cost savings if you buy the one without the disk drive. Does that appeal to you, Heath?
Well, dude, I've never owned a Sony console, but in principle, does it appeal to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have my discs.
Okay.
I'm not like some of my relatives that have just never-ending collections of DVDs and Blu-rays for some reason.
Gotcha.
But If it's not cost prohibitive, I'll probably get one with a disc.
I suspect the price delta between discless and disc
It's
drive,
on the order of like $25.
Yeah, I mean, at most I see it being like $50.
Yeah.
There's no way it's $100 difference.
Imagine that prestigious disc drive.
And they're not that expensive to manufacture. Although it is like a 4K Blu-ray disc drive, which is nice.
Okay.
I would probably go for the disc drive version myself. So that was the presentation, Heath. I had a lot of fun watching it. To me, it recaptured that feeling of E3 because this is E3 season, or what would have been E3 season.
Right.
This was the most excited I was to watch video game advertisements in a long time.
And forgive me, I'll watch the Deathloop trailer and give you my full criticisms of it.
Good.
I'll bring you that next episode.
I need it. So after hearing about all this, Heath, where's your hype level?
Oh, if I were a young Zoomer, which console would I get if I was in the market for this holiday season?
Yeah.
The PlayStation.
Not a terribly surprising
Granted,
answer.
the number one reason you get a console versus the other one is which ones your friends are getting.
That's a big
Because if you
factor.
are the lone PlayStation player at your middle school,
Yeah.
good luck. Although, unless you have an adjacent middle school that also has console owners like you, and you can befriend those people so that when you meet up in 9th grade, you're set.
Gotcha.
This is a very local scenario.
Yeah, very local. One big omission was they did not give the release date and they did not give the price. That was a betting man.
It's gonna be $4.99.
I think so. I think the disc drive version will be $4.99. I think the discless one will be
$4.49.
$4.49.
Although it'll drop to $400 by March of the following year.
You think in like 5 months' time it'll have a $100 price drop?
You'll be able to get it for $400. Yeah.
Like used?
Retail.
No, you won't.
Sure you will.
I mean, I don't think so. You thought 400 was wishful thinking? That's even more wishful thinking.
Watch it.
All right. I think that's all we've had for the news this week.
Yeah. Did I? Yeah, that's all I got.
Me too. So we'll take another break, and we have discussions to readdress and emails to read. We'll see you then.
Previously on Mobius Tubes.
So we have a little conversation topic for this episode. Let's say such a machine exists called the experience machine. You could opt to plug yourself into this machine. You would be suspended in presumably like nutritional goop.
Just like in a stasis.
This experience machine could deliver you any laundry list of experiences you could ever dream up.
Building a birdhouse.
You could build as many birdhouses as you want. This experience machine does anything you want it to, and it recreates it perfectly. But it's all happening in your head. Within the actual realm of reality, your body has been floating in a tank.
Do we know anyone personally that would plug into such a thing?
Me.
Oh my god!
All right.
What do you mean you plug in?
It seems like all reward all the time.
So what if you have a very shiny Minecraft creative mode bucket that you're in?
I'm going to get kind of dark for a second.
Okay, go for it.
For all intents and purposes, you and any other person I meet is kind of like a black box. The fact that they're soulless does not register. And that's enough for me. That imbues my work with meaning.
Why do I devalue those lives? I could SimCity send a meteor to hit them.
Yeah.
And be like, woe is me.
I'm not going to bet on the exception.
Wow.
Do you play the lottery every single week, Heath? It's not in your best interest.
Look at my Santa's bag of everything I have for the future, and you are just taking a lighter to that bag.
You don't have to burn the bag, though. You take it with you, and the bag gets bigger because you can accomplish more.
Yeah.
You value the real world more because you tell yourself it's the real world.
Right, yeah, because I don't have a choice otherwise. And if I'm in a fishbowl, I'm gonna swim.
But you could go from a fishbowl to a whole lake and do a lot more swimming.
Chris, I would go so far as to say that you won the first round of this debate. You had solid examples of, video games being a crude version of this experience machine. You're listening to Rage Against the Experience Machine Reloaded. That's a Matrix pun.
Matrix pun. So, yeah.
I came ready.
You came with your research done.
Weaponized.
Ready to counter and retaliate against any point I could raise.
I read all of George Nikas's work.
Perfect. Well, I thought you hated reading.
What's his name again? Nozick.
Nozick. Okay. So, just in case any of you listeners, for some reason, did not listen to the conclusion.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play like a previously on Mobius Tubes.
Oh,
and
that's
then
going to be
like,
awesome.
Da, 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 like out of context quotes. Yeah.
So that'll catch them up.
They just heard that.
Should we summarize our stances on the issue that we dug into last time?
Summarize each other's stance.
Each other's, yeah, perfect.
So Chris is a card-carrying hedonist who can't find a reason that's not arbitrary to not plug in.
Heath, on the other hand, he did attribute some inherent value that makes reality more worthwhile to inhabit than the more pleasurable, perfect recreation that is inherently less valuable, he says, because of its digital nature.
No, not because it's... Okay, this is where you can't differentiate between the appraisal of transhumanism and virtuality versus the sanctity of personhood. This is the order in which we're going to go through things.
Heath has an agenda.
All right, so first things we're going to do is the walk back-a-thon. So, Chris, you said a lot of things that were utterly insane last episode. And, we each said some things that were questionable, and I just like to give you the opportunity to just kind of say, and I have nothing to walk back, mind you.
Sure, yeah.
I'm waiting.
Oh, this is on me to walk back things?
Are you saying that you have little to amend?
I came to this conversation prepared to double down. I have nothing that needs correction. I was just spewing gospel truths last episode.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's start with the video game comparison, and we'll start with that here. Because you mentioned a game that I like, Outer Wilds.
Yeah.
And you said how, I thought that was such a good game. And the hypocrisy of like, well, how come I didn't put that game down for the final time and say, well, it's a shame that was just a video game and not real. Because I was taking such exception to living your life in the experience machine. And Chris, you have to understand that, yes, I derive equal value from a fun video game and an equally fun real life thing, despite the digital nature of the former. And for that reason, I can expect to derive equal value from a life spent in the experience machine and a life spent in real life, if not more, because the experience machine would be able to provide any of my utmost desires. And so why wouldn't you value that even more than real life? Your opportunity cost, right? You were saying that I was settling for the less valuable product.
Yes.
By choosing to not go for the place where I could enjoy even more likes.
I think I did say that. Yes, you have a finite number of minutes you're alive, and to not maximize your pleasure during those minutes would be an opportunity cost. You'd be leaving potential on the table.
Yes. And you asked me, why do I inherently devalue the people in the experience machine versus the people in what I think is reality?
Right.
And to that I say, you're being very generous in calling them people.
Yeah.
In the experience machine.
You say so.
Let's go through what I define personhood.
Okay. We're getting deep here.
We can't. If you're listening to this, you want us to go deep.
Yeah.
Personhood is defined as any living thing that exists in the reality that I was born in.
Okay.
everything that has been alive, every person, I should say, in my reality, by default, have personhood.
I see. Yeah, I mean, you did use the phrase "what I define in my reality," which
Right.
digs into the kind of arbitrary nature that's holding me back from saying, "Yeah, I should stay in reality." But reality is what you make it out to be.
You were saying that you there's no way of knowing that where you are right now isn't a pre-programmed simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where we differ.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Your thesis is because we can never know that our consciousness is not pre-programmed, you might as well, given the opportunity, write a program yourself and enjoy the blissful ignorance. Whereas I say like kind of the polar opposite. Although you can never rule out the possibility that your current consciousness is pre-programmed, you must assume it exists in reality because to do otherwise would give life no meaning.
I see. Well, this makes a lot of sense, considering I don't think life has this inherent meaning to it. It's up to you to determine the meaning yourself.
Right.
It's an existentialist versus a nihilist. A nihilist will say, we were not put on this plane of existence for one inherent purpose, therefore life has no meaning, therefore we should give up. While an existentialist, who I more side with, they say, yes, it is true. There is no inherent meaning for you to pursue.
Right.
But that's great, because now you can define it however you so please.
Yeah. I agree with that.
You must assume it exists in reality because otherwise life has no meaning.
Right, because
I'd say
what are you going to do otherwise? It's like, oh, I live in a fishbowl.
I think this is a subtle difference here. René Descartes, who is attributed to saying, I think, therefore I am. I am very aware of my own thinking, which means I don't necessarily doubt my own consciousness. It's everyone around me who I cannot ever perceive their consciousness.
Okay.
Which I was trying to say, a perfectly recreated Heath algorithm in the machine would be indistinguishable to me from the flesh and blood Heath in front of me right now.
Okay.
So I was kind of bringing that up to say that although I am hanging around in this simulation, getting buddy-buddy with a bunch of soulless bytes of code, the lived experience would be no different than palling around with flesh and blood physical humans.
Right. The experience would be yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, and then that's where we get into, okay, if the lived experience is no different, then calling one superior than the other gets very arbitrary.
So, no, that's where you're wrong again.
Oh.
Because the reason reality will always have more value than a simulation is because of consequence.
Ooh, let's dig into that line right there. And I've come with a thought experiment for our thought experiment.
Sure.
That first part of the sentence, the reason reality will always have more value. I want to basically pick into your brain, Heath, and confirm you really mean that sentence right there, that statement.
Go for it.
Okay.
Come at me, bro.
We're going to see whether Heath actually does believe reality is inherently more valuable than a simulated reality, or
it is.
If maybe, just maybe, he's falling prey to what is known as the status quo bias. Let's say, Heath, we're talking to each other right now, but all of a sudden, you blink, and suddenly you are in a stark white room, strapped to a bench, and this attendant approaches you and says, hello, Heath, and you notice there's a bunch of electrodes strapped to your head, and the attendant says, sorry to disturb you from your simulated reality. This is an annual check-in, which is just part of the schedule, where we rip you out of the experience machine you plugged into about 2 decades ago. And every year we interrupt you temporarily to check in to make sure the experience you are still finding it satisfactory. Of course, we can plug you right back in as you just give us the word, and all of your relationships and projects are still on hold right where you left them. Or you're welcome to, of course, instead join us in reality and hang out with us here in the real physical world. The choice is yours. And I want your reaction, Heath. How How do you feel about this? Does this change your thoughts on joining with reality or plugging back into the experience at all?
No, yeah. I don't even let him finish the sentence. I find the exit door and I kick it open.
Okay.
Yeah, I get out of there.
Because for me, that complicated things considerably. This is where I was still unsure about which side I wanted to fall on. The status quo bias is our humans' emotional tendency to favor things as they are. And we just attribute more value to that as opposed to something scary and unknown. So for some people, plugging into this experience machine could be seen as the scary unknown thing, where what we call reality here, this is the status quo. It's nice, it's chill, it's comfortable. So you're saying, Heath, you do value reality.
I find this annual check-in
Yeah.
to be cheating death.
Cheating death.
For the time that I was plugged in, I might as well have been dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fact that
I was plugged in for some time, right?
yeah,
That time was robbed from me.
robbed from you.
Yeah.
So this time that was robbed from you, it has been your life so far as you know it right now.
Okay, yeah.
You would not resume me at the table here. I'd have to finish out this podcast by myself.
Right.
And that, you call that robbed from you. And now that you know that that was simulated, you care for it not at all.
Yes. Not at all. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Why? What are you? Why is that interesting? It makes perfect sense.
You're a diehard realist. Every emotion you've felt up until this point would have been simulated in that regard. And it means nothing to you now, just as
I mean, it informs the decisions that I will go on to make in the real world.
if I had just found out the almost 24 years of life I've had so far took place in my head, I wouldn't discard it immediately and think nothing of it.
No, it'd be food for thought.
Food for thought and nothing more. I mean, I wouldn't even know what reality is like. That simulated experience would have formed who I am.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty
valuable. And then
valuable.
it's like, hey, you want to get plugged back in? No!
Okay.
No! That's a lethal injection, whatever sedative they put you under.
So you really, whatever this nebulous concept of reality is, you think that's the way to go.
Right, because the best life you can live is the one where after you're gone, everyone's singing your praises.
I see.
And like I said, the brick you lay, I am so hard into altruism, even though I don't give a shit about charity.
Interesting.
Despite however meaningful my experiences that I could have in the machine, falling in love, name it. And I was halfway through an important moment, maybe.
This podcast.
Yeah, or an important moment. And they were like, oh, I can plug it back in after we run diagnostics or whatever, after we install a Windows update.
Yeah.
No, I'm out the exit. And then I open the exit door, and it's like a horrible reality, maybe.
Maybe pretty
and
nice.
I'm like, all right, this is kind of tough to work with. All right, first step.
Maybe it just boils down to how much we care about what other people think of us. Because I do not care.
Okay.
But
I
you
care a lot.
You said the best life is when you die and everyone's singing your praises.
Yeah.
Who cares? You're dead. You won't ever see that.
No, but that's why you live.
But that's why you live.
Okay, so let's keep going, right?
Okay.
I call this the post-scarcity excuse.
Sure.
Would I feel better about people plugging in to the machine? Because my main contention with you is I don't think you should plug in because you could make a whole lot of difference in the real world. But what if we were in such a state where the real life is kind of set? Not much can be done to solve our problems. The problems we have left are innocuous and going to get solved as a matter of just run the course of humanity.
Sure.
We got it all planned out. And our algorithms are not predicting any super huge problems down the pipeline that would warrant you sticking around.
Yeah.
Would I feel better about you plugging in? Yeah.
Yeah. You want a hot take, Heath?
What?
I'm going to argue for the moral righteousness of plugging in, even in not so great times. So we're not in a let's imagine we're in our current reality.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not post-scarcity yet.
No.
I don't think it's morally reprehensible to plug in, and I think we have a historical analog to demonstrate it.
Why? Because my first thought is like, what if somebody plugged in like MLK and he never got to march? Now, what I should have said was then he would have had a very long dream. We'll get him next time.
Now, if we're talking about forcibly plugging in other individuals who may not want to, that's terrible. Yeah. I'm talking about totally voluntarily willing volunteers to plug in. Who are doing so of their own free will.
Because they're one less mouth to feed?
So, there's a few things when you plug in. Obviously, you stop consuming the finite resources we have on Earth. So you leave those for other people.
Yeah.
You could immediately donate.
How big is your carbon footprint?
I mean, as residents of a first world country, we have a bigger carbon footprint than our fair share should be.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, you're one less metric ton per year.
Mm-hmm.
Which on the scale of the Earth is near negligent.
And I'd throw back with whatever impact you have compared to the 7 billion is near negligent as well.
Do you know what I'm gonna do?
Obviously not.
Obviously not.
No. As soon as you plug in, any material goods or wealth you've amassed, you could immediately donate because you don't have any need for it anymore. The historical analog I was alluding to is the Black Plague. In the Black Plague, one of the worst diseases to ever ravage Western Europe.
Killed a third of them.
Killed 1/3 of people living in Europe.
Awful.
Like I said last time, I pulled this statistic out of thin air. Let's say the experience machine was offered to people, and I don't know, 1 in 3 people said, hell yes, sign me up.
It's effectively, yeah.
Or effectively 1/3 of the population has been snuffed out. They're
Are
not
you
dead.
going to say that post-plague Europe experienced the greatest boon in humanity?
Well, it led to this nice little thing called the Renaissance. Here's what's going on, Heath. By plugging in, you have made life appreciably better for the people who chose not to. People in Europe, post the survivors, had a great time. Suddenly, all of their labor was in much higher demand. It led to better workers' rights and like the formation of unions. Suddenly, wages on average went up for all laborers in Western Europe. Standards of living soared. There was more land per person. Honestly, this was like the really impactful.
They were born into a better standard of living.
Standard of living increased for everyone who stayed behind. So it seems like
the way for modern. Oh my God!
You go in, you have a great time. You stay behind, you have a great time.
All you need to do is just do a programmed mass exodus.
I mean, just inherently, when there are fewer people around, every person becomes less dispensable, which imbues their life with more meaning because they're more. It's more necessary to keep them around.
Man, yeah, they would be martyrs, but they'd get to enjoy the rest of their life in a fun way.
Yeah. So what do you have to say about that?
Still, it sounds so nightmarish.
Who's having a nightmare, though? Because the willing volunteers got what they wanted in this roller coaster of pleasure, and everyone who stayed behind.
I mourn what those people's lives could have been like in the real world. Surely some of them would have suffered, but
I wouldn't mourn the overpopulated, hyper-competitive environment they're leaving behind, and that they killed by leaving it behind.
Yeah, they spared a worse reality for a better one.
Now, if you arbitrarily picked people at random and forced them in, now we have a problem. Yeah. But if it's just the demographic that wants to go in just inherently, then I don't see any downside.
Oh, my God. I mean,
we'd have a new renaissance on our hands.
Surely, in the adversity of having to be in real life, other solutions would have arisen. Right? You're saying this like, had we barred this get out of jail free card, you're saying that, well, since we have to stay here, I think I'll just put my nose to the grindstone. Whoops, I just invented oxygen from nothing.
You're saying we'd miss out on those innovations.
Yeah.
I think it would be more likely we'd be more innovative with fewer people around.
No.
Yes, because when there is the surplus population and the increased competition, it is like the bucket of crabs pulling each other down, which, I mean, we literally saw with the decreased population leading to the Renaissance, leading to a whole birth of new ideas that did not occur in overpopulated Dark Age Europe, because it was just a fight to survive, man. It was tough with feudalism. But now that people on average have more resources at their disposal, more leisure time, it leads to more innovation. With fewer people, even though it seems counterproductive, it's because their time is better spent and more productively spent with fewer people to compete against. Yeah, someone below the poverty line right now in some urban city could be the person who creates the cure for cancer, but they're never going to have the resources available to channel that knowledge into a productive solution.
So they might as well plug in and enjoy their existence and afford others the opportunity to do that.
Who knows how many people could have the potential to cure cancer in them right now and just don't have the means to capitalize on it.
And this solution gives them a greater access to those means than any other solution.
Any other solution.
I'm just like, yeah, you've picked one situation where greater bounty leads to greater advancements.
Right.
And am I to believe that over the course of human history, greater advancements haven't been the product of scarcity?
Oh, you're saying how in certain situations scarcity leads to innovation.
Are we saying that whenever times are good, they get better?
Well, no, actually, because when times are good, as was seen after the post-Black Plague period, times are good, people reproduce, and then times become bad again because of that increased competition.
Oh,
it's like the saying, strong men breed good times breed weak men breed bad times. And then the cycle continues ad infinitum.
Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, this is, I hate this. I'll concede that, yeah, it would probably solve a lot of problems if we could just solve overpopulation that way.
It's killing you.
It works on a macro scale.
Yeah.
But on a micro scale, it's purgatory.
But it's like...
Even if it is paradise. It's purgatory and paradise.
Party purgatory.
Yeah, you love it. When truth should come second.
Okay.
So, we landed on the moon. Did we not?
Yeah, we did.
We did, yeah. Imagine for me that at some stage, the Apollo mission had to abort.
Okay.
And we had to come back. We never landed on the moon. I would wager that there would be some member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that would be like, hey, let's just say we landed on the moon.
Oh.
No one's there to catch us. Everyone saw the launch. They'd believe it. It would do great things for morale. It would probably lead to advancements in STEM because people would be inspired. Yeah.
Motivational.
Yeah. We beat the Russians. They need not know.
Got it.
So that situation, I can understand how truth coming second would be a positive thing.
A net boon, maybe.
Yeah. And then you're like, hey, we faked it. Sorry, but it's a good thing now we have several colonies in the solar system. We lied, but it worked out.
Kind of like the ends justify the means.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I mentioned this, you know what click farms are, right?
Yes.
A good metric of if a website is doing well is number of users, or it's like an app, right?
Right.
And there have been certain developers that have turned to these criminal practices of purchasing clicks from click farms.
Right. Which is literally just a room full of people who are paid to visit your website.
Right. To give the guise that it is a healthy website.
Yeah.
If you were to do a crude version of the Experience Machine on me, because I tend to make a YouTube video time to time, and if you were to, unwittingly to me, sign up a bunch of click farms to watch my videos, and I get 1 million views I've never hit 1 million views.
Gotcha.
And you were to do that to me, and I am loving it. I'm feeling so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to me later and be like, "Hey Heath, I gotta mention this. I put click farms on your views. I would hate you."
Yeah.
Despite how pleasurable my little fantasy was. You see how this is a parallel to the experience machine?
You were describing like an unforeseen harm that is being committed to you that you do not know about.
Right.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely analogous to the experience machine.
Yeah. So I'm right. Like you can see why, barring the situation where like that million bots led to greater traffic to my videos, and then it like boosted my channel that way.
Boosted your authentic traffic.
Yeah.
This was like a one-time artificial bump that never yielded lasting impacts.
Yeah, I would feel cheated.
Now, to make this analogy more in line with the experience machine, it would be the same thing except I never come over and tell you, because you never plug out of the experience machine.
Yeah.
You're plugged in for life.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance is bliss until the day you die.
Yes. Don't do that to me.
No.
No. I don't want the ignorance is bliss.
But you're happier.
But it's a lie.
But it's a lie that does not impact you.
Right.
I'm basically telling everyone to cheat on your significant other and just never get caught. As long as you don't get caught, it's totally cool.
Yeah.
Chris says, go ahead.
I guess so. I didn't think of that. So how do we analyze this? How, in spite of how happy I would be and how miserable I am right now, don't do that because I want my life to be genuine. And that wouldn't be genuine as much as the experience machine would not be genuine. Does that make sense? And that, well, to you it doesn't, because like, who cares whether or not it's genuine? If you're enjoying your life, that's a good thing, right?
Right.
And I say, no. The
concept of unseen harm in the form of being lied to does give me pause. I guess one thing I would go to is, I think you would disagree with this statement, the highs of experiencing that record traffic YouTube videos and the pleasure it brings you. You might say that upon figuring out it's a lie, it has erased that pleasure from you and nulled and voided it. But I guess in my line of thinking is that is still a pleasure you got to experience. There were still good times had.
You would rest easy because I had a great time when I was being duped.
Right.
You wouldn't feel that bad if I was like, Chris, I hate you. You'd be like, you do, but you had a great time. You would rest easy.
No, because then in that situation, you hate me now.
I do.
And we can't make this podcast if you hate me. So there'd be negative consequences for me down the line.
Yeah. Although we would make this podcast and it would just become an expression of how much I hate you. More than it already is. Yeah, it boils down to the intoxication of transhumanism for you is trumping your sanctity of personhood.
And you describe personhood as everyone in the reality you were born into?
Yeah, I don't care about the click farm views because I know they're not people.
But here's my question. How can you be so certain the reality you're born into is the realist reality?
I'm in a simulation right now. Yeah. That's what you're getting at? Because I can't be certain. And despite the fact that I can't be certain, I have to assume that I am in reality because what's my alternative? Oh, I might be in a simulation right now. What do I do with that?
Well, yeah, exactly. If Elon Musk walked up to you on a street corner and whispered in your ear that he could definitively say that you're in a simulation right now.
Hey, buddy, yeah.
If he did that to me, it would change the way I live my life, not at all. Because that doesn't give me any avenue to escape. It doesn't change like my mental calculus for how to live my best life. The fact that everything I've known has been a simulation this whole time and that I can't change it is irrelevant.
Okay. Now let's go to me, and we're walking in the street and through a crosswalk, and Elon comes and he whispers like, "Blueberry pie, you're in a simulation."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's persuasive enough. I would just stop, take a seat in the crosswalk, and consider a car running me over. Because, like, what's the point?
You would die because you aren't living in a reality you've never seen. You would kill yourself.
I've painted a picture that once I die, the world goes on.
Mm-hmm. Which it could. Maybe this is like a networked simulation where, yes, we're in a computer simulation,
After one user dies.
but it's a LAN party, so there's multiple
the
users.
The lobby is still open.
The lobby is stacked.
Stand by, connecting to new host, kind of, buffers. And Chris, because we could, let's say that reality is like a cyclical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where every 100 years it reboots and we're none the wiser.
Okay.
I can't live with that. Then I would be like, well, let's go nuts.
You put a lot of value on legacy.
Yes.
So anything that possibly disrupts the potential for your legacy is a no-go for you.
Is a threat. Burn it, kill it with fire.
I guess just my low expectations for legacy let me willingly accept the experience machine.
I guess, yeah.
Because, like, I could tell you everything I possibly know about my great-grandfather. I could summarize in 1 to 2 sentences for you right now. That's not much of a legacy. And as his direct descendant, I should be the person who knows the most about him. Just within a matter of a couple generations, people fade so quickly. Except for the few who make it into the history books, which is a very small group. And then you're not even knowing them as a person. Like, I don't necessarily care if someone knows I wrote a cool software thing. They'll never know me. As soon as I die, knowing Chris, the human being, becomes an impossibility. That's what's important to me.
I don't track with this.
No. It matters to me not at all that a person 200 years from now gets handed a bullet list of my accomplishments in a school classroom. I couldn't care less. I'd be laughing in heaven or hell, just saying, what a sucker. He has to memorize that. That wasn't even that important.
Okay, that I get butterflies thinking of that in my case.
You get butterflies.
Yeah. I think that's sick.
I think it's irrelevant.
Oh, I well up a little bit thinking about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we are just very different people.
I guess so, but who's better? Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had to say on this page. Oh, and yeah, here I go to say that, there are plenty of characters I like more than actual people.
Oh, me too.
But
yeah,
they're just characters.
You've only interacted with them in a very crude sense.
Yeah.
If you said something is just a character, but I can have a full dynamic conversation with it, I can reach out and touch it. I can... At some point, if it smells like a goose, it looks like a goose, it talks like a goose, eventually you just have to say it's a goose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of my argument for the fully realized virtual human being.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then somebody is like, that's not actually a goose. And I'm like, what? And I look at it, and I can somewhat, if I look at it hard enough, and it's like, oh, I can tell from its gait, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, it's no longer a goose. Then I'm like, yeah, it's not a goose. And the illusion is shattered.
The perfect recreation wouldn't have anything for you to pick up on, though.
Right.
There would be no tell in the gate.
Right. But when I'm reading the TOS of the experience machine...
What's the TOS?
The terms of service.
Oh.
You're a software developer.
I'm used to them being called, like, EULAs.
Oh, you're right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, look at me. I don't even know. Wait, EULA is user license agreement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at me. I'm smart. Yeah, if I'm reading the EULA for the experience machine, yeah, because there's no longevity to the machine, I'm not interested. Despite the fact that you're saying that it could last for as long as humanity. Yeah. But it's just a box.
All right, who do you agree with? Write to us at our email address, mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. Give us your takes.
We're going to do this one more time in the distant future. If we do this live,
Yeah.
Mobius Tubes Live. Here's my thing, right? We're going to call it Rage Against the Machine Revolution.
All right. The end of the trilogy.
The end of the trilogy. I'm going to come out dressed as Morpheus.
Okay.
And you're going to come out...
I'm the guy in the first movie who says ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And then betrays the team.
Yeah, you come out with a nice steak.
Yeah, I'll have a nice steak.
You're eating a nice steak, and you're like, I know this is ones and zeros, but nom nom. Yay!
Perfect.
Yay.
We have an email, but do we even do it this episode?
Well, if the email is related to the discussion topic, we have to.
It's not.
Okay, then we wait.
Okay. We'll save it for next episode. Rest assured, listener, we will get to your email eventually. And that's going to do it for episode 42 of Mobius Tubes. Hope you've enjoyed another lengthy one.
I thought this was going to be more divisive.
More divisive?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we disagreed at every point.
I
How
know,
could it be
but,
more divisive?
Yeah, but it like... It kind of felt like, Santa Claus doesn't exist. And it's like, oh, well, I didn't win is my issue.
Gotcha. Well, can there really be a winner in such a abstract thought experiment?
Yeah, if I get put in a textbook, yes. And that plays right into, that's perfect.
And I would argue as long as you feel like the winner, you won.
This is meta.
All right. And we'll all see you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.